Hello. We wanted to interrupt our normal programming and share this next video with you guys.
Yeah, I have a dear college friend who's a professor at IUPUI in Indiana, and she teaches a class on travel and tourism, and she's doing a section on adventure travel. And she chose to interview us and our YouTube channel about what we do, and we would love to show you the interview.
So, yeah, stay tuned. We're going to put the interview right after this intro and hope you guys enjoy it.
All
Thanks.
right, class, we have a very special interview for you tonight. As promised, I am bringing to you Kyle and Michelle Shore, who are the Wandering Shores, star of their own YouTube television show, I guess, or TV. It's not TV, it's live entertainment, I guess.
Internet
Um,
vlog.
internet, internet sensations, I would call you.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah, thanks.
So, Shell and I actually went to college together. And so I was lucky enough to know them before they became the Wandering Shores. And I remember they started out in a 2,500 square foot house up at the north side of Indianapolis, along with 4 or 5 cats at the time.
At the time, we had
And
5.
yeah. And then they downsized into a tiny house. And then now they've given up everything, retired early, and are out traveling the country in their RV trailer. So, wanted to bring them to you today because we are studying adventure travel, and they are a perfect example of adventure travelers. So, I'm going to let them share their story with you today, and then we are going to ask them some of your questions that you all sent in for extra credit. So, you guys ready?
We're
We
ready.
are. We are. We're excited to be here. Thanks for having us. Um,
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, so as you mentioned, we were living in a 2,500 square foot home, sticks and bricks. And then he had this, what I thought was a crazy idea to downsize, sell everything, and live at a campground. Um, we had this trailer. We called it a cabin, but it was at a campground on a lake. And so we sold everything we had, moved in there, and we had a 5-year plan to pay off bills and continue downsizing and living tiny. And then at the end of that 5 years, we were going to hit the road. And within that 5 years, buy a camper that we like and one that we can modify to fit our needs while we're traveling on the road.
Yeah,
Nice.
good job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
We
And
we
then
we came up with. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, so during that time, that 5 years that you were getting ready for this, were you, saving, putting money aside? Were you doing workouts? Were you studying about, hiking and how to survive in an RV? I mean, what kind of other things did you do to prepare for this lifestyle?
Well, I think, yeah, we did a little bit of all of that. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did during the 5-year, plan was to pay down as much debt as we possibly could, so that when we hit the road, we wouldn't have, student loans and credit card debt and house debt and car debt and all of that. So that was one of the major focuses, was to really downsize to be able to limit our expenses to allow us to contribute more money to those debts that we had. So, during that time, we saved money. We paid off our college loans. We paid off our camper. Eventually, when we ended up buying the camper in 2019, we ended up being able to pay cash for that and pay that off right away. We still have a bill, or we still have a payment on a truck, but that's going to be paid off in 2 months. So we've been able to continue to do that. But yeah, we basically knew that we weren't going to have a retirement fund that we could kick back on. We were both 47 years old, and neither of our careers really had a retirement system set up for us to retire at 47 years old. So we ended up just saving money, investing some of the money in stocks and bonds and things like that to try to increase the value of it over time. We were, you had mentioned kind of getting ready for the
Oh,
physical
yeah.
side of full-time travel. We both did CrossFit for 7+ years. I actually helped manage one of our CrossFit gyms there in Indianapolis for 2 years. So
Yeah, and that wasn't something that we were like, "Oh, we have to do this." We were already doing that. So it was just an added bonus once we hit the road. We had, that CrossFit background behind us, for hiking and even for working out while we're on the road just on our own. We don't go to CrossFit gyms while we're on the road, but we do some activity outside.
Excellent. Well, yeah, you guys stay really active between all the hikes and biking and all of that.
yeah.
It's woo, if you watch some of your episodes, I get exhausted just watching you. Well, but you do bring up a good point. So, money, how do you make money while you're on the road now?
Well, when we initially, so what complicated a little bit of this, our original plan was to hit the road on June 22nd of 2020. And that would have been 5 years from the day that we sold our house in Indianapolis and then subsequently moved into our tiny house. So our plan at that point was to just kind of live on our savings for much of the time. But COVID hit, as we all know, right in 2020. And so we actually had already started doing a little online work with a few small survey companies. So we've continued to do that. That's one way that we have some income while we're still on the road because we don't want to completely deplete our savings account. Because then we'd probably have to move back to sticks and bricks and work 9 to 5 jobs. And after 2+ years, we don't have any intention on doing that anytime soon. So the other thing probably about a year into it, I basically we met up with one of our friends that was from Indianapolis. He happened to be with his family out in Bryce Canyon in Utah, and he taught online at different universities. So he talked to me about, possibly picking up a teaching job doing that. I had never been a professor or a teacher before. I had been a mental health therapist in the prison system for 20 years. But I really looked into that. And so about 6 or 8 months ago, I started teaching a class over at Southern New Hampshire University on wellness under the social sciences realm of things. So I really enjoyed doing that. And I'm just continuing to do that, just one class a week. So, or one class a semester, I should say.
Yeah, and along those lines, we have a few different streams of income. And I know we do have a video on how we make money on the road. So that's something you can look further into. Um, I have a part-time job, and what's nice is it is flexible. I'm not tied down to the camper 9 to 5 every day. And it's one that I enjoy. And that was key for me. So, but yeah, feel free to check out our video on how we make money on the road.
Excellent, excellent. Well, and now I know you've built up your followers. We were kind of talking about that too. How do you make money from YouTube, or do you make money from YouTube?
Well, that's a great question, Jen. So
Great question.
it has not been an easy. It's not been easy on YouTube.
It was not an overnight deal at
Yeah,
all.
I think when we hit the road, real brief story. When we hit the road, we never really intended to do a YouTube channel. And on my last day of work, my staff gave me a GoPro and said, "We want to watch your adventures."
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, then I guess we got to film them." And so we just started filming our adventures with the intention of just kind of providing it for friends and family to follow along. And then I really started enjoying it a lot more. Michelle was a little bit hesitant at first,
I
and
was.
and that's been a change. But yeah, it's been a long road for YouTube. So the brief version is that on the YouTube algorithm, and it's a magical thing that happens behind the scenes, but the basic gist is you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers, and you have to have 4,000 hours of view time within the last 12 calendar months. And so that 4,000 hours changes from day to day because a year ago we released a video maybe, and we lose those hours of view time tomorrow. So it's taken us about 2.5 years, but as of about 38 days ago,
Yeah.
we finally got monetized. And the main thing for us was we don't have the hopes and dreams of retiring on YouTube money, but it's going to help pay for a tank of gas for us or whatever. So, we're only about 30 days into it. You know, we just hit 1,800 subscribers, so we're really excited about that. I remember making a post about having our 99 subscribers and hoping somebody would sign up to be 100 so we could have triple digits. So it's really been, you know, and I'm seeing our growth grow day by day now. And I think that YouTube's finding our stuff rewarding to our viewers and pushing it out to more people. And that's really the kind of the way this happens. The overnight sensations on YouTube, they do exist. They're extremely, extremely rare. And they tended to have gotten into YouTube 10 years ago before it was such a huge social media presence.
Mm,
We've got a
okay.
lot of friends who do YouTube channels who we've met through YouTube or through our channel. And I would say 90% of them aren't even monetized. So they're just putting out content in hopes that maybe they'll make some money at some point, but they're putting out content because they like sharing where they're going and the free camping spaces or whatever their channel happens to be about. Most of our friends obviously are about RVing and YouTube and those types of things.
Okay. Well, so and tying into that to try to get the most viewers possible with your episodes, does that play into how you plan for your trips and what adventures you're going to go on? Do you try to keep in mind like what might get the most viewers, or are you just doing whatever you feel like?
I think we do more of whatever we feel
Yeah,
like.
I
And
do too.
if, you know, we're not a channel, you know, there's a lot of channels out there and there's nothing wrong with this, but there's a lot of channels out there that script what their episodes are going to be about and they script, you know, the different shots. We just film as we go and we put in, I would say when we put out an episode, 90%, 90 to 95% of what we film goes in the episode. So we're not editing out a bunch of stuff. We don't spend hours editing out words like I know I say a lot. So as all of you guys start watching it, you'll notice that I try to edit. I'm not going to try to edit those things out. So yeah, I think we just kind of go where we want to go and film whatever we might be doing at the time. I just recently released a episode on a brand new generator that we got. And that one was a little more intentional because I knew that that had a mass appeal to anybody on the internet that's going to be looking for information on a new generator. But for our clientele, you know, or for our subscribers, it has some interest, but more for that episode, it's more generally searchable information. So, but we don't do a lot of those videos. Most of them are about Michelle and I, you know, getting lost on
Yeah.
hikes, almost dying on other adventures, which I'm sure you're going to talk about at some point.
You know I will.
Yes.
No, but that brings up a good point though too. I mean, as far as for anyone who's looking to get started in RV life, and doing what you do, how do you plan? Is it, I mean, I'm sure you have a plan. Like, do you sit down one day and be like, okay, a day from now or 2 days from now, we're going to go do this, travel this far, stay here. How long does it take you to usually plan where you're going next?
And I will say, he is our planner. He is like the guru of planning.
Well,
For some reason, I can't wrap my brain around it, and it's not it's not in my wheelhouse. So he's the one for that information for sure.
I think for us, I think we just have a general loose idea of what part of the country we want to be in. Or as you know, we go to a lot of national parks. So if there's national parks that we haven't seen yet, I'll just kind of put them on my radar, if you will, and figure out how can we get to that national park. So for example, Great Sand Dunes National Park is one that we've not been to in central Colorado. So sometime this year we're going to get there. How we're going to get there, we don't know yet. We typically don't plan more than about 2 months out, if that. And typically when we look at where we're going next, we want to do it within about a 3 to 4 hour drive radius from where we're currently at. And we like to go somewhere and sit for about a week or two at least. We are not one of the travelers who like to move every 3 days or something. That's just too much work. And it's too fast paced for us. We like to be able to go and, you know, just kind of sit and enjoy and feel like we can sit and enjoy an area without necessarily having to go on a certain hike every day and a mountain bike trip or go see a museum or something like that.
Yeah, and I will say we can do that and be that flexible because we're not making reservations to stay in campgrounds. Since we dry camp, we're totally self-sufficient, so we can move at our own pace and not have to be somewhere for a reservation to camp at a campground.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you said dry camp. Can you explain what that is?
Dry camping is when you don't have any electricity hookups and no water hookups. You are running off of solar panels and
Generator.
a generator. You want to have
Typically, it's done on public land, like that's run by the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management. They're in U.S. National Forest land, sometimes national park land, but it's hard sometimes to find free camping in national park areas. But in the general area around it, often there's a national forest or something like that where you can find free camping. So yeah, I would say we boondock or free camp, dispersed camping. They're all kind of the same thing. We do that about 90% of the time. We very rarely are paying to stay at a campground. In part, that's what makes our life a lot more flexible is we don't have to plan a year in advance to try to get a campsite that's going to be, they're going to release the reservation window a year from now for the Florida state parks. And, we don't want to plan that way where
no.
we have to be somewhere a year from now.
Okay.
So for us, that's made things a lot easier. And we've not had, especially out west, we've not had any trouble finding free camping. And even when we were east our first year, we were able to locate free camping. It's just not as easy because there's much higher population and on the east side of the Mississippi.
Gotcha. So is boondocking and dry camping basically the same thing and
Yeah,
free
yeah, they're
camping?
the exact. Yep, that's all
Okay, the
that. Yeah,
same
it's
thing.
just it's a
Yes.
universal word for camping and public
Yeah.
lands a lot of times are not hooked up to any type of, sewer system, water or electric other than what you carry around yourself.
Okay. And how do you find these locations? Do you have an app or how would you know where to go?
Yeah, there's three main apps that I use. There's one called Campendium. There's freecampsites.net, and then another app called iOverlander. And all of those have their good, the good things and bad things. Primarily, I use Campendium to find our free camping. So you basically go in there and they have regular campgrounds on there as well. But most people that are using Campendium are going to be using it for free camping or cheap camping. And you just go on there, you indicate where you're looking to go, and then the map will populate saying, here's all the free locations that are on BLM land or on national forest land or wherever, and then they'll have reviews. And then some of them, and which is what we started doing, some of them will have Michelle's worried about our awning. I'm gonna go take care of our awning, but
Oh,
I'll be right back.
oh, the
Michelle,
heavy
can you
winds.
Yeah, there's a gust that just came out. And that's never good. You want me to go inside? Okay.
I say here, I can hit pause. You guys go take care of what you
Yeah, why
need
don't you
to.
hit pause a second?
Okay. Okay, so we're back. So tell it what just happened there. You said like there was a wind gust that came in and
Yeah, hashtag RV life.
Yeah.
So we had our awning out to try to keep some of the sun off of the main side of the camper because it's obviously pretty sunny here in Arizona right now. But and the wind picked up and the awning started.
Started picking it up.
Yeah, and we've already ripped a quarter of the awning off at one point when we got caught in a wind gust before. So
Yeah.
Michelle starts freaking out. You'll probably see in the video. She's like,
I get real paranoid with it because when it got caught up in a wind gust in Utah, the wind gust was unexpected. Well, so we thought we got to it in time, but it had already ripped like the end a little bit. We were able to sew it up after the fact, but since then I've just been real paranoid. And if there's even the slightest wind, I'm like, we should probably go close that.
we had to
okay.
sew it with fishing line. So that's one of the other things that you have to become very adept at is fixing things like MacGyver with while you're on the road because you don't have the resources that you would sitting in a house.
Sure, sure. Well, and that brings up one of the questions that the students had asked was, what do you do when there's bad weather, like tornadoes or, gosh, I don't know, hurricanes or whatever? I mean, how living in an RV, how do you protect yourself? How do you stay safe in those conditions?
Yeah, well, I guess that comes up quite a bit as far as RV life. You know, so far we've been pretty lucky. We've had some serious winds,
Yeah.
but a couple of the things that we do, you know, if we know there's going to be some high winds, we've got a real good app called My Radar, which gives us forecasted winds and other stuff, obviously, for several days out. So we kind of know when the winds are supposed to be picking up. So what we'll do is we'll orient our camper so that the front of the camper is into the wind. So if that means we have to hook up and move and rotate, we will.
We will.
You know, we will also leave the truck connected to the RV so that it gives it some extra weight and stability. You know, if worst came to worst, we'd have to basically grab the cats and go try to find a place that had concrete walls, whether that be, you know, in a town around here or something like that. So far we've been lucky.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
the one thing that we do and you know, it wasn't as important to us when we were living in a house, but we have to keep an eye on the weather all the time. And the best defense is just to hook up and leave prior to it getting bad. And so that's what we've had to do sometimes, either because of cold or because of wind. You know, we were in Florida our first year. We didn't really experience any hurricane season during that time, but that's probably, you know, in watching what happened this past hurricane season, that's what people did that were in RVs. If they had the ability to pick up and move, they did, and they just got out of there as quickly as they could. So we kind of do a combination of things. But yeah, it's being in a travel trailer, especially a small, you know, 28-foot travel trailer. It only weighs probably 6,000 pounds. If that wind gets going, it sounds like everything's being ripped off the roof.
Wow.
It's not
Yeah.
a pleasant experience, but
Mhm.
for us, luckily, we've been able to avoid it for the most part.
Good,
Yes.
good. Okay. Yeah, I remember your episode from Arizona. You were in Arizona and had those big high winds. I
Yeah.
think, oh, well, speaking of, where are you now?
Michelle?
We're in Arizona, but the city is called Arizona. We're right outside of
Yeah.
Ajo, Arizona, and we are between Tucson and Yuma, and just right outside of a national monument called Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument.
Very good.
Okay. Well, and
So
so did you purposely, I mean, like, why Arizona?
We've actually had, you know, basically we were planning to start heading east. We spent the winter in Yuma and we knew that we needed to start heading east to head towards Indiana and Ohio, etc. And so we just kind of started looking for places that, you know, had available free camping. Our friends had actually camped in the campground here at the National Monument before, and I'd seen videos on YouTube about this place, and it was beautiful. And so it's always kind of been on our radar, and so we knew when we had a chance to come, we were going to try to get down here. And you know, it turned out we actually had some friends come down a few days ago and camp with us, and then we've got some more friends that we've met while on the road. They're coming this afternoon to meet up with us, and we're going to be traveling with them for about a month or so too.
Okay, very cool. Well, and then so before we get into the student questions, I know
Sure.
we've been spending a lot of time, but this is really interesting, and I know something else that a lot of people are going to want to know. Since you're on the move every couple of weeks, how do you do things like get your mail or go to doctor's appointments? You know, how do you handle everyday stuff like that?
You want me?
um yeah, well, I'll start with doctor's appointments. Doctor's appointments are a little bit of a challenge because our insurance is just for the state of Ohio. It costs a little bit more money to get coverage, health insurance coverage for the whole United States. So typically what we'll do is, blood work, we can pretty much do that online, go to a place and get some blood work done. Um, or I have found one place that I could go, um, if I needed to visit a Planned Parenthood, or if it was an emergency, let's say we were hiking and I broke a leg, then our
That's
insurance,
very possible.
I'm
She's kind of
a
klutzy
little
sometimes.
clumsy. Our insurance does cover emergency room visits.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping not to break a leg.
Yeah, for the most part, we're fairly healthy, so we don't knock on wood, we don't need to go to the doctors a whole lot. So our healthcare coverage covers us in Ohio. So when we go back to Ohio, we can kind of do our annual checkups or evaluations, lab work, etc. When it comes to medicine, I don't know that we're going to promote this. I mean, but I've done through 2 or 3 videos on it. We go down to Mexico and we get medicine across the border because you don't need a prescription and it's so much cheaper. That's where we get our dental care done as well. So when we spend the winters in Yuma, Arizona, we literally go 10 minutes across the border and we get our dental and all our prescription medications. We can get antibiotics if we want to have some on hand for, any illnesses, things like that. So yeah, that's how we kind of handle the medical side of things. When it comes to mail, etc., I've basically asked my brother, who still lives in Ohio with his family. They are our permanent address. And so we have everything mailed to them. And then he kind of just goes through it and throws out what we don't want, or he might scan pictures of it and send them to if it's something that we need. Or once we're in a location for a period of time, he might mail us a package with whatever might be mailed. But nowadays, so much of it's just digital that we don't get a lot of mail. It's just usually junk mail. And for as far as purchasing things, Amazon lockers is a huge thing that we utilize if we're buying something through Amazon. The Postal Service has a thing called general delivery. So you can have stuff delivered to the post office in the area that you're at. You just have to address it a certain way. It's called general delivery. And so you can do that. The only stipulation is that whatever that's being sent has to be sent through the Postal Service and not through FedEx or UPS. So you just have to make sure if you're buying something that they send it through Postal Service to the post office, because they won't accept FedEx and UPS packages. We just recently found out that you can have stuff delivered or sent to Dollar General.
Oh,
So 2 days ago, I went up and picked up a Amazon package I had sent to Dollar General. And sometimes you can have it sent to a UPS store or a FedEx location. They'll typically charge you like $5 or $10 for a package, as a holding fee, if you will. But most of the times it's Amazon locker or general delivery of the post office.
okay. All right. Okay. So are you guys ready to get into the questions now?
We are.
Yeah.
All right.
Michelle's excited about these and she's going to answer them all.
All right, I'm going to read off this first question from one of the students. And then while you're thinking about the answer, I'm going to pull up a couple of your Instagram reels. Okay.
Okay.
So here's the first question. Living in an RV can be an adventurous and exciting lifestyle, but it also comes with unique challenges. Considering this, in your opinion, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of traveling in an RV? So while you're thinking about that, let me share my screen here. Maybe play a couple of episodes. See if I get the right one. Okay. Do you see Kyle there?
Yeah, I can see me.
Okay. And then the hike. All right. I thought I had it pulled up, but let's go to your YouTube page, which also connects to your Instagram feeds.
Yep.
Okay. So you can still see this?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
can see your screen.
Good. Okay. So down here, we talked about weather as one of the challenges.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yep. And then
This was filmed yesterday. So I was helping Sean renovate and put in a composting toilet, and we had dropped a screw down into the black tank. So we had to get a magnet to fish it out.
oops. So that was a screw. Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a screw that we magnetized to it.
Okay, this one, let's see. Let me scroll. Oh, there we go. This one. Yeah,
Oh yeah, this is the wind.
the weather again. So again, we're talking about
Yeah.
challenges with RV life, right?
Yeah.
So windy.
And then this one here. Well, not that one, this one. Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was Florida. And we had arrived at our boondocking spot. We had driven down this probably 10-mile road to get down to the boondocking spot near the river. And this is the last 50 feet of it before you got to the campsite. We ran into this flooding.
Kyle actually got out of the truck and walked through the entire part of the water just to make sure it was shallow enough for us to drive through.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't
Yeah,
sure
I
how
was
deep it
surprised to
was.
see you driving, Shell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which-
that's about
that's
the
that's
only time I've
probably
driven
the
it.
only time she's ever driven. Actually, it might be.
Yeah, I
It might
won't
be the
drive.
only time she's ever driven the rig. So
Yeah, I don't drive.
she sits in the back seat with the cats. But you asked Jen about, things that are difficult. I think, um, you know, to my surprise, finding water is not all that difficult because a lot of gas stations and other locations will allow you to fill up your tank, whether it be 5-gallon buckets or your RV. One of the biggest challenge, unfortunately, and I think this is contributing to some of the abuse of the public lands as well, is getting rid of trash.
Mm,
A lot of times finding a place to throw out trash. We've kind of resorted mostly to using the grocery bags and making smaller, deposits of trash, like when we go to a gas station or something like that. But finding places that will allow you to throw out like a large garbage bag or something is sometimes pretty difficult. So getting rid of trash, and I think, that and just irresponsible, users of the land, that's unfortunately sometimes why there's so much debris and trash left at some of these free camping sites, is because people are just, it's too difficult for them to pack it out. And so they just leave it where it's at, and either that or try to burn it in a fire pit, and it just is just trashing the areas. So yeah, I think finding places to get rid of trash is difficult. Obviously, as you said, the weather. But we've been pretty lucky when it comes to weather, kind of across the 2.5 years that we've been on the road. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else might be I mean, things break. The video we have coming out on Sunday, you'll see that very clearly. First of all, I got sick. And then we had multiple things breaking in the camper at the same time. So trying to figure out how to repair those, either with the tools that you have. And I'm lucky I brought a lot of tools. But when we're parked out in these remote areas, it's not always easy to get parts to fix some of these things. And so
mhm.
we've been messing with our refrigerator, which you'll see on Sunday's episode. We've been messing with our refrigerator because it was very inconsistent on maintaining temperature, and so food was spoiling and things like that. So we run into those things. But I will, I'll be the first to say that all of those things considered, I'd still much rather be doing this than sitting behind the desk that I loved my job. I loved my coworkers, but being able to get out and do this is 1,000 times better than sitting behind the desk that I did for 20 plus years, or
Okay.
being in the prison or being in the prison system.
All right. Well, so we'll move on to the next question then, because we've got so many. I'm going to kind of roll through these.
Okay, I'll zip it up.
Um, I mean, we could just talk for hours, Kyle. We really could. But you had mentioned one of the issues was trash and being, sustainable. We've talked a lot in this course about sustainable travel, ecotourism,
Yeah.
things like that. So one of the students had a question. In light of your visit to Glacier National Park and the awe-inspiring beauty you witnessed there, what steps can you take to promote more environmentally conscious methods of travel? So in addition to trash and making sure you pick up for yourself, is there anything else that you can recommend for people when they're traveling to how to be more environmentally conscious?
Well, I think, just one of the things that I think about when it came to Glacier, or adventures in Glacier, one of the things that a lot of these national parks, and not all of them, but one of the things that they do is they offer the shuttle system. And utilizing that shuttle system to get around is so much easier on the environment, from you driving your car everywhere and then sitting idling until somebody leaves a parking space, because you're just sharking around the parking lot waiting for somebody back out, because they are getting so busy. So I think, as far as helping to, you know, protect the environment, using public services that are out there like that will help reduce some of the carbon emissions and some of the trash and stuff like that is one way I think that you can do it. And getting out and doing hikes, and not, walking off trail. I think that's another thing that
That's a big one. Yes.
it
Mhm.
really makes me angry when we're out on a hike and somebody's just making their own trail and traipsing over all the, the shrubbery or whatever it is that they're climbing on or over. We need to try to protect these places.
Something else along the what he mentioned about staying on trail is there are many national parks that have trails that don't allow pets. Like you can't take your dog on it. And we've been on a few where there's a sign posted, dogs aren't allowed on this trail, and we might see one tourist on the trail with their dog, and they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, and these aren't, emotional support dogs that they're carrying around.
No.
They're, you know, they're pets and they didn't want to leave them at home or in the car or whatever, and so they're bringing them out on trails when they're not supposed to be there, and then you're having to avoid, dog poop and stuff, and that happens in campsites too, unfortunately.
Mhm. And the other thing I think we've talked about before that we've seen an uptick in, especially after 2020, are they still regulating the number of people that they allow on trails? I know you'd mentioned in one of your episodes about having to get a
Yeah,
permit and arrive at a certain time, like have a reservation for these trails.
handle that.
Yeah, and for anyone that is planning on going to a national park, that is something that they definitely want to research. They want to go to that website and research because, like Arches National Park, they have a time permit for you just to drive in with your car and enter. And if you don't have a permit to show them, they tell you, okay, you need to pull up there and turn around. You can't enter the park today. But then there's also these hikes, some of the most popular hikes and are getting just so busy and so packed that they have uh, hiking permits that you have to also access online in order to hike that trail.
Yeah,
Okay.
Angel's Landing is like that at Zion. You have to have a permit now. Now, the year we did it, which was in 2021, it did not require a permit. But this past summer, they started requiring permits, I think, in beginning of July. And that trail is extremely, extremely popular. When we came back down off of that hike, and this is before the permit system, there was a line at the bottom of the trail that was 3.5 hours long just to go onto the trail. And there was a park ranger waiting there basically saying, okay, I mean, it was like an amusement park, they were just standing in line waiting for their turn to go hike a 3 or
Wow.
4 mile trail. So they did turn to a lot of permit systems for a lot of the parks. So we would really encourage you to check out that particular park. Rocky Mountain National Park has timed entry. Going to the Road Sun in Glacier has
going to the
time,
Sun
or
Road.
going to the Sun Road has timed entry there so that, they're trying to consolidate and restrict the sheer number of people, which,
It
is,
makes sense
and
and
it,
it's needed.
it gives you a better experience because it's not as absolutely horribly crowded as some parks have been before, they started implementing that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, especially if you've ever been to a big theme park too and how crowded it gets. It's
Yeah,
not fun. It's not enjoyable. You don't enjoy the experience.
yeah.
So your recommendation would be then anyone who's thinking about going to a national park, definitely research that. They should have that information online for any trails that you want to do that may require permits or timed
Yeah, and
entries.
unfortunately, a lot of those permits, there's a window that you have to order them, and typically it's like 2 or 3 months in advance. So you definitely want to jump on it early. And then what they do is then the day before, they'll also release a few more online at recreation.gov is usually the site that you have to use. But they'll
Okay.
release a few more permits for the next day. So if you haven't gotten one and the window's closed, there's still an opportunity, but you're rolling the dice if you show up to, if you show up to Rocky Mountain, you want to go in tomorrow. Now, some of the parks, as long as you enter before like 8 a.m., you don't require a permit. So, if you're an early riser, we got into Yosemite at 5 a.m. because we didn't want to deal with the permit thing. Plus, we wanted to get a parking spot and go do a hike when there wasn't 8 million people. So,
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen again now. You mentioned Angel's Landing. Can you see this?
not yet.
Not yet? Okay, here, let me share.
Okay.
How about
Yep.
now?
Now we can.
All
Yep.
right.
Yes.
We can see it.
The hike we didn't tell our parents about, Angel's Landing. So
Yep.
one of the other students had a question. What is the longest or most challenging trail trip that you have been on, and would you do it again? So before you answer that, let me play this video.
Okay.
Kyle.
I'm Michelle, and we're the Wandering Shores.
So today's adventure, this is one that we didn't necessarily tell our parents about before we came. So we are at the one and only Zion National Park. It is a little chilly and windy out here, which is going to make this even probably more terrifying, especially for me. So we are doing a special hike today, and this is the sign. Let me point out the little stick figure on it. That's not a good sign. Angel's Landing. Yeah, we're hiking Angel's Landing today. So, all right, here we go. Entering the change section.
There's a lot of heavy breathing during this episode.
Understandable. I still can't believe you guys did this hike.
Yeah.
I like the ominous music in the background
Yeah.
too.
That was a good find on our editing program.
All right, let me fast forward here a little bit. Didn't you say you came across some hikers that had babies? They were carrying babies on their
Yeah.
backs?
Yeah. Yep,
Yes,
yep, there was a guy up at the top that was hiking up with a baby on his backpack, in his backpack.
I couldn't believe it. Who was a baby carrier?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, we
God,
were going all the way up to the top there.
there are no railings. The
Yep,
only thing you
no
have is a chain to hold on to.
Yep.
This one to me is probably one of my most favorite episodes because I'm still just in shock that these things are even out there for people to experience. It seems
Yeah.
so
Sure.
dangerous. I want to get up to the top because I guess it was worth it, but how long did it, how long did it take
There
you
you
to
go.
get to the top?
Use that chain, pull it up.
There's
Good.
So
Michelle.
I think that hike was like 4 miles,
Ugh,
and so it's really not that long. It's just like 2,000 feet of elevation gain.
4 miles, you say, not that long. That's 4 miles straight up.
Well, yeah, that's true.
How long did it take you to reach the top?
I think it took us about 2 hours to get up to the top, and then about an hour and a half to get back down. It was actually harder to get back down because there were so many more people coming up. Because we went early enough in the morning where we were one of the first people to get onto the trail. So it wasn't a lot of traffic when we were going up, but when we were coming down, it was completely different.
Wow, that is just absolutely stunning. And again, where was this located at?
That was in southwest Utah in Zion National Park.
Almost there. Looks like 45 minutes so far.
Oh, 45 minutes.
Oh yeah.
That,
Oh, maybe.
oh my God, just looking at that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna pause that one. All right, let me come back here. Let's stop share. Okay, so would you say that that was your most challenging, scariest hike that you've ever done?
Yeah, I think as far as scariest, it definitely was. Physically demanding. It's really funny. That hike is, I'm pretty afraid of heights, and so I thought, this chain section is gonna was gonna be terrifying. And holding on to that chain, you get, I mean, maybe it's a false sense. People die there all the time, unfortunately, but you get a false sense of security holding on to that chain. And it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be, but it was still super scary because, you've got nothing between you and a 2,000-foot fall to the bottom.
Yeah, and I don't recall really thinking about it too much. I mean, I had a friend tell me, just focus on what you're doing and pay attention, hold on to that chain. Um, and so I was pretty much laser focused. I mean, I knew there was a long drop, but I was just focused on my path, and that seemed to help.
Oh my gosh, do either of you have a fear of heights?
I do.
He does, I don't.
Oh, and you still did it, Kyle. That's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty worried going into it. But I'd do it again.
I would, well, I would do it again, but I would want it to be in the summer. I don't want to mess with any type of slush or ice
Yeah.
or snow. I don't want to go there. You know, kudos to those people that take on that challenge, but that's not for us. We want to
And
go when it's
I
too
saw one
dry.
of those episodes. It was snow and they're climbing
Yeah.
up that same trail and it's
Yeah.
snow and ice covered. I'm like, are you
Yeah.
crazy?
No, that's yeah, we're not gonna do that.
No.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, so then that leads into, as you prepare for these hikes, another question we've got. For someone who has never went hiking, how would I start? What are some tips for a first-time hiker? What would you say are the most essential things that you need to pack for a good trip, like the excellent Hoka hiking boots that you promoted in one of
Yes.
the episodes? Um, but
That
in
was
general,
belief.
what are your must-haves and don't even bother bringing?
Okay. Um, I
Michelle made a list.
made a list because I'm usually the one that gets the backpacks ready. First and foremost, you want to make sure you have plenty of water and food. You can't depend on these national parks to have snacks and bottles of water available for you to buy. You just can't. I was even shocked to find out that that many of the national parks have stopped selling those types of things because people litter too much. So
Mhm.
you have to bring in your own. You have to take care of your own snacks and liquids. Sunblock, first aid kit, bug spray, a hat. You want to dress in layers. And then make sure that you still have enough room in your backpack and your layers are thin enough that you can throw those extra layers in your backpack or around your waist. Bear spray if you're in bear country. Maybe a knife or like a multi-tool deal. We carry one. I don't think we've ever used it, but we have it if we need it. And we're only day hikers. We're not night hikers. We're not 2 to 3 day hikers. It's just during the day. Um, and then I would say trekking poles are optional. We have them. We don't take them on every day hike we go on. It just depends. You know, when we research what the terrain is like, we'll decide if we take them. And sometimes we'll take them and hook them on our backpack and not even use them. And a headlamp is optional too. If you're a hiker, a day hiker that goes out later in the afternoon to catch that sunset, you're probably going to want a headlamp on your way back. We're early birds, so we usually go first thing in the morning as early as we can, and then do our hike that way. So
Gotcha.
I,
Well,
I
and I could
think
see that that headlamp would come in helpful too if you're doing spelunking, cave exploring, or going through
yeah,
tunnels like you did with your
sure.
biking tour that you did.
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I think you know, one of the nice things about the national parks, you know, the student had asked the question about, you know, if I haven't been a hiker before, how do I get started or what would you recommend? I think the beautiful thing about the national parks or, you know, the national park system is that there's something for everyone. You don't have to go on Angel's Landing. There's 35 other hikes on there that either don't have a lot of elevation gain or are a mile long. Some of them are paved, you know, obviously you know, they've got, you know, trails that are meant for families with their pushing a stroller or a wheelchair or a bike or whatever. So there's a lot of options out there. You know, we just, you know, because we've been doing this a while, we tend to take on some of the more challenging ones. But we have a lot of friends who are living this lifestyle
Mhm.
too. That's just not their jam,
Yeah.
and they're going to, you know, they're going to go out. You know, actually, one of our friends that is coming today to meet up with us, she just had hip surgery probably 3 months ago. And so these trails that, you know, we would typically do are just not something she's capable of doing yet.
Mhm.
And so we'll go on a 1 or 2 mile hike with little elevation gain. And, you know, there's apps out there. All Trails is really the one that we use. All Trails will give you all of that information. It'll tell you the elevation gain, the length. You'll be able to see reviews of the actual trail from people who recently have done it. You'll see pictures. So, you know, you can just get out there and find some place. I mean, when you know, we weren't as avid of hikers as we are now when we were living back at home, but we'd go over to, you know, Fort Bend and do a mountain bike ride, or, you know, we'd find places locally to go do a hike there in Indiana when we were living there. So there's a lot of options out there. You don't have to go, you know, take on this, you know, 2,000 foot elevation gain and, you know, 13 miles like we did when we were out at a glacier up to Cracker Lake. I mean, that's not a trail that a lot of people
I mean, there's a lot of people that can do it and want to do it, but there's also people that that's not what they're looking for. And
Right. So
there's a lot
there's
of
something
options.
for all levels then,
Yeah,
which is great because that
absolutely.
was another question one of the students had was when you were biking Hiawatha mountain bike trail, it looked
Yeah.
like it was kind of like straight up elevation and they were worried about their knees. And so
Oh, so real quick about Hiawatha. Hiawatha is actually probably the easiest trail we've
Oh,
ever done
yeah.
because it may look that way on the video, but it's actually downhill the whole way.
It's slight
It's
downhill.
so gradual that, I mean, you know, I don't think my heart rate went above 100 the entire time because most of the time you're just pedal, pedal, coast, pedal, pedal, coast. Because that trail, you know, they start you up near the top of the mountain where you take your car to, and then you ride down the 7 miles, I think it is,
Yeah.
or 9. You ride down to the place that picks you up, and then they take you back. So that
oh,
whole
that's
trail is
nice. So you don't
actually,
have to go back uphill. I'm down for
yeah,
that.
that you can. There
It
are
is an
people who
option.
do. But even then, the elevation, I think the percentage grade is like 1.1%. I mean, it's almost flat. If anything, it's just a little downhill. So that is actually a very non-physically demanding trail that anybody of any age can do, and
Okay.
it's absolutely gorgeous, as many of your students probably saw in the video.
Yeah, it was beautiful. All those tunnels, that was really cool too.
Oh
So
yeah.
so back to you had mentioned one of the things that you usually pack if you're in bear country is bear spray. On a lot of your videos, you can hear this jingle, jingle, jingle. And so that one of the questions that came up was about the bear bell, and they wanted to
Yeah.
know, do you normally in the adventures in Glacier National Park, you mentioned you have bear bells. Do they normally work by keeping bears away from you, or does it sometimes attract bears to your location?
That is a great question.
That's a great question
Because
because
she asked the same
one
question to
day we
me.
were hiking, and while I'm hiking, my brain just kind of thinks of all these things. Well, I actually thought of that same exact question.
Yeah, so the purpose of the bear bell is to basically be making noise the entire time you're hiking to give the bears a heads up that you're coming, and so that they're not startled by you. You know, bear attacks are extremely rare. But one of the times that they do sometimes attack is when you surprise them. And so the purpose of the bear bell is to kind of make some noise as you're walking, or, you know, a lot of people will be talking even if they're by themselves. You know, they're making some type of audible noise to give the bear a heads up that, you know, that we're walking on this trail. But yeah, they don't attract bears, unlike Michelle, who thought the same thing. You know, they basically just
Makes sense.
they give the bear a heads up that you're coming, so that you don't come up on them while they're eating berries, and then they fight back.
Okay. All right. Well, so that leads into when we were talking about also the biking trail that we were just on.
Uh-huh.
You talk about bucket list and things that you want to do. And since completing the route of the Hiawatha mountain bike trail that was on your bucket list, what are some
Mhm.
of the other things that are still left on your bucket list? Like I know you've mentioned before, like the wave trail. Are you still waiting to do that, or what else is still
We're
on your bucket list that you would love to
the
do?
way the wave trail is still on our list. We've kind of given up on entering the lottery because, you know, the thing about the wave is you have to enter the lottery 6 months in advance, and you have to know exactly what days and of the week or what days of a specific month that you're going to want to hike it. And we entered it for about 6 months straight every month and just never got it. So that is still on our list, but we've kind of moved on past that at this point. If we get up in that area, we'll probably go up there and, you know, do one of the standby passes and see if we might be able to get one of those. But yeah, the wave trail is on there. We want to go see the sequoias in the Redwoods National Forest and National Park. That is on there for sure. You know, the route of the Hiawatha I stumbled upon watching somebody else's YouTube video, and they had talked about it, and so it had been on our list for a long time. And I said if we ever get up to that area of Idaho and Montana, we were definitely going to do it. There's another mountain bike trail that is in Michigan that that we want to do. It kind of cuts across the entire state of Michigan, so that's another trail that I'd really like to do. That's more of a multi-day trail. It's not, you know, one and done kind of downhill coast. It's more of a challenging trail. And then we've got still lots of national parks to go. I think we're at 34 or 35, something like
Yeah.
that right now. So, and I think there's 62 or 63. Chiricahua National Monument is probably about 2 hours east of here. And we were there 2 years ago, and it's actually on the list to become a national park in the upcoming year. We think
Yeah.
the government's gonna pass that and turn it from a national monument to a national park. And so our goal is to go back there and do some more hiking there because we didn't have enough time.
And I have one on my bucket list. I want to go on a hike that leads to a hot spring. We haven't done that yet. There have been some around, but they've just been too far of a drive to go to. And so we couldn't work it into our schedule. So that's something I still want to do.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. And then so with most of these hikes that you do, and even the ones that require permits, is there usually a charge for that? Do you have to plan this out and budget for these trips?
No, as far as the permit charge, typically, the recreation.gov, the fee is like a $2 fee to apply for a permit. And the same is true for like the timed entry permits. They're typically $2, $2 to $3. So as far as the cost is concerned for those, it's not really expensive. Most of what we do is free. Whether it be hiking in the national parks or in, the national monument down the street that we're going to go on a hike in tomorrow morning. So, as far as the costs associated with our travels, it's very minimal. I mean, we have a national park pass. We paid $80 for the year, and that gets us into all the national parks. If you were to if you were to pay individually for each park, it ranges anywhere from $25 to $35 per park. So you're better off if you're going to go to two parks, you might as well just buy the national park pass for the year. And it's $80 and it gets you into all the parks. But yeah, so we don't really spend a lot of money on excursions or adventures. Because most of what we do is free or included inside the national park that we have the annual pass for.
Okay. So in budgeting again for this lifestyle, where would you say that most of your expense comes from? Would it be gas, food? And that was
Yeah,
another question.
gas
Do
and
Yeah.
you
food.
eat at home a lot or do you go out?
We do. No, it's rare that we go out to eat. So it's a huge treat when we do go out to eat. We do enjoy eating out, but no, we cook everything at home. Groceries are a big expense, as I'm sure they are for everybody. But yeah, um, I'm a creature of habit, so I do tend to make the same thing. So that's helpful. We don't have a lot of counter space to get real creative and be a gourmet cook. I mean, you could, but yeah, we eat at home, and that works for us. It may not work for some people. Going out's fun. Going out is, I mean, that's definitely something, and it's a social thing to do too. But and then our second biggest expense is gas.
Yeah, and obviously one of the nice things about gas is you can really more than you could working a 9 to 5 job because you're required, if you don't work remotely, you're required to drive into work every day. We can just sit still for a while to try to help save money that month on gas. We typically only move once or twice a month, so we stay 2 weeks at a time. So any of our gas expense, our camper, when we're pulling our camper, we get about 8 miles a gallon. So it's not great at all, to say the least. But once we get there, we don't do a whole lot of driving. Our truck has sat stationary now, I think for basically 4 days. We haven't gone anywhere. So gas is really up and down. Obviously, the increased cost of gas has impacted us like it has everybody. But one of the things that we've noticed is we drive far less now, even though we live on the road, than we were when we were driving, to and from work and to and from the gym every day. And I mean, I would say we've put on probably about in the 2.5 years, I would say we've put on probably about 50,000 miles, but we were each on our individual vehicles, we were putting on 25 to 30,000 each vehicle each year when we
Huh.
were living in sticks and bricks. So we
Okay.
do a lot
All
less
right.
driving.
Okay, well, we have hit, I think, the 1 hour mark. So I think we've just got a couple of questions left, and I do want to play one more examples from your show. So
Okay.
that leads us into one of the more interesting questions here. Have you guys ever had a cool or dangerous wildlife encounter What's the scariest experience you've had? And while you're thinking about that, I think we're going to play the infamous
Yeah.
alligator kayak video.
Yep. All right. Fair enough.
All right, let me see here. If we share screen, if I can get it.
Yep.
Okay, that was.
All right.
And let's go to bad decision. Oh, it disappeared. Oh, hold on. Oh no, it totally disappeared. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause for just a second.
Okay.
Okay, and now we're back. So, as I promised, I am going to show you now this infamous episode. All right.
Yeah, screen sharing isn't on, I don't think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
48 degrees here in
Now, can
Central
you see it?
Florida today.
Yeah,
But
we can see it.
I am on the Withlacoochee River. We're here at the boat launch where the campground is. So I am going to paddle, which is a unique little known factoid. This part of the river actually runs north. So I'm going to be paddling north up the river, I guess, if you will. And I'm not sure how far I'm going to go. We'll see what we find. This will be the first time a solo trip in this new inflatable kayak. So
Okay.
we'll be checking
Bad
back in.
decision number one. I think that's important to note as
Yeah.
we move along here.
Just checking in at mile marker number 1. So far, this has been a beautiful paddle. There's nobody else out here, which also makes it a little bit creepy. You know, whenever you hear anything make some noise, there was something that jumped in the water. I don't know if it jumped from the shore or if it was just a very large fish, but it made quite a commotion about 5 feet off the side of the boat. So, you know, first thought is it's probably an alligator because there are tons of alligators around here, I understand. But this
Uh-huh. Let's fast forward a little bit more here and keep
Yeah.
watching Kyle.
All
So
right.
just about at the 2 mile marker. And one of the other things that makes this a little more adventurous, other than just the potential of the alligators and, you know, hidden things underneath the water that are not necessarily good for an inflatable kayak, is the fact that once you get in here into this current section around mile marker 2 from the campground, there's just water and trees and offshoots everywhere. So, you know, I'll give you a look around.
So it's getting a little worse, right, Kyle?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're still, I mean, are starting to panic at this point or?
No, it's coming up. My panic comes up here real
From
soon.
the street. Update on mile marker 3. So I can see why some people don't start where I started and start paddling. They start further north where the river is much more open. This is really quite a confusing maze at times. I don't know if you can see back there, but I had to paddle through all those lily pads and weeds and whatever the heck else is going on there. So I've had to do that several times. Had to go over a teeny little bit of waterfall as well.
Let's take you to this moment.
Yep.
to come paddle. Figured I'd grab the camera for this, just in case it's needed in the future. Right there, I don't know if you can see the ripples in the water. There was just an alligator swimming right above the surface with his eyes peeking up. So I'm gonna leave this running as I try to paddle far left here to make sure I don't interfere with whatever it is he's doing over there.
So was the idea if you left it running in case you were attacked, they would have the video?
Yeah. Yeah, I figured if somebody, you know, finds the gator at some point and has me inside of him, they at least got the camera to know what happened.
Oh God.
Yeah, and it
So,
didn't get much
swamp
better
I
after
took
that,
over,
other than the fact I was out of the
and I'm
water.
not exactly sure where the river is anymore. I've got GPS. I'm looking on the map. I'm going to figure this out. But yeah, this turned out to be a lot more of an adventure than I had anticipated. I'm glad I brought you along. I'm about done, but I got to get the hell out of here. So I've been out here for about 3 hours total.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine what was going through your head. Like,
Quarters of a mile.
okay.
Carrying this thing on my head. if nothing else, I found out that I can break the paddle in half and hide it there, and I don't have to carry the paddle with one hand while I'm trying to carry the thing on my head. So I found an old Forest Service road, and let me show you what I see up there. I actually see a gate up there. I have no idea where I'm going to be at, but
Okay, so you had hope at that point, Kyle, right? You thought
Yeah, I had
maybe.
some hope. You know, part of the feedback that we get on that is like they're wondering why I didn't deflate the kayak, but the reality is I didn't know if I was going to need it again, and I didn't have the pump to pump it back up. So, you
Ah,
know,
okay.
once I got out of the water, I thought, well, I'm not gonna deflate this thing and make it easier to carry, because I may need it to get the heck out of wherever I'm at. And you know, this is, you know, marshy swampland down in central Florida. And, you know, as you know, those of you who've seen this video will see, you know, I end up on some private property, and the guy, he was
Okay,
nice enough. He
hold
drove
on, we're
me.
getting there.
Oh,
Hold on,
okay.
here we
All
go.
right.
okay, I got to the gate. Looks like this is the boundary marker management area. There's like a little screened-in gazebo over there. I don't know, this is probably private property, but at this point I'm so damn lost, I don't care. I'm gonna walk through it and chance it. I think there's a road in one of these directions over here I saw on the map, so I'm gonna head that way and then make the distress call to my wife. By the way, I know I'll never hear the end of this, but at least I'm the hell out of that swamp.
All right, and the last part here.
Yeah.
For everyone wondering how you finally got out of it.
All right, well, I am now, as you can see, out here in this cow pasture. Pissed off a few cows. I was worried that they might charge me, but they didn't. So I kept walking, and I met a real nice guy whose property I'm trespassing on, and he said, yeah, I'm about 3 miles from the road. So he said this is not unusual, and people don't usually paddle that part of the Withlacoochee River, which I understand now why. But he's going to get his car. We're going to throw the boat in the back of his car, and we're going to go meet up with Michelle at a predetermined destination of pickup so that I can eat a bunch of crow. So thanks for joining us. I'm still alive. I'm learning a lot. This was a fun adventure through most of it. It was scary through some of it, and but I survived. So I said goodbye in the last clip, but I figured I'd just add this in. Taking a ride over to the meetup point. So this guy's super nice. Give me a ride.
All right, so that, I think you said, Kyle, was probably your most popular videos.
Yeah, that's been our most popular video on there. And you know, it seems like we're getting, you know, 400 or 500 views every month now lately. So it must have gotten back into YouTube's algorithm, and people are finding it again. So even though it's almost 2 years old now.
They say, so what were your biggest takeaways from that? What would you say, maybe the top 3 things that you learned from that adventure?
Well, number one, you know, for the benefit of everyone else, is to take the camera whenever I go places, because there's a good chance something's going to happen that, you know, we'll want to be filming. Secondly, you know, one of the things I learned from that is that, um, you know, I'm pretty good at map reading skills, but when it came to that part of the state, and one of the other things I found out is I mistakenly clicked on a wrong button, so my map was orienting north all the time.
Mm.
And so when I thought I was walking one direction, I was actually not walking that direction. You know, and Google Maps is not so pinpoint that it can, you know, measure 5 feet at a time. It measures, you know, larger increments. So, you know, me moving on the map would indicate nothing. And so, you know, I learned that I need to pay more attention to the maps. And you know, I share my location now with my wife, so that she can see where I'm at all times, so that, you know, she knows, you know,
Yeah.
because, you know, back then I don't think I did that on Google. And so she had no idea. She just knew I was gone for like 4 or 5
Wow.
hours. And then I eventually called her, and, you know, and the other, the last part about that is that was right in the middle of like the pandemic scare. And so that guy was super cautious. He was super nice, but he was super cautious. And that's why he didn't want me in his car with him, because, you know, he didn't know what was going on. And so that's why I was riding in the back of the pickup truck, is because for him, it was safer as well. And, you know, not to mention, I just showed up on his land. He had
Yeah.
beautiful property, but,
We're
you know,
very thankful for that man, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. If you're out
Yeah.
there watching it, thank you.
Yeah,
Never
so
judge
that
Nick.
goes back
I-
to, you know, you don't sometimes intentionally plan to go off trail, but if you do,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that can get dangerous, and I imagine, yeah, pretty scary. So would you say that that was maybe was that your most scariest, like not
No,
knowing where you
for me,
were?
definitely. Yeah, for me, definitely.
Okay.
I haven't really had a scary one. But I did see a scary, I guess it's not really an animal per se.
It's an insect.
It's well, it was a little Scorpio. A
Scorpion.
scorpion. It was a little
There's a little
scorpion.
Scorpio born in October.
Well, no, because you know, being in Arizona, people always ask, "Oh, have you seen scorpions?" And no, but yeah, when I moved something under the camper at our last location, and I saw something about probably this big, and it looked like a rock colored spider. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a big spider. Well, when I looked more closely, it had the curved tail, and it was just a tiny little scorpion. And I couldn't believe it. That was our first scorpion.
Yeah, we've been in the desert lots, you know, over the last 2.5 years, and that's the first scorpion that we've run into. You know, we've seen coyotes, we've seen, not in the desert.
Burros.
Yeah, burros. We saw, you know, we ran into a moose on our hiking trail up
yeah.
in Grand Tetons. You know, we've not seen, well, I've seen some bear, but I was pretty far away. It was a grizzly and a mom, a dad, and a baby grizzly that were out playing in this field when we were up in Wyoming as well. So we've seen some bear, but not real close. But
Yep.
yeah,
So no scary encounters really.
the gator was the worst.
Okay. Well, and then so one of the next to the last questions here, and I don't know if that it doesn't really tie in with animals, but thinking outside of animals, what would you say is the strangest or most surprising encounter that you've ever experienced on these RV trips?
Surprising. Well, the strangest, we were at a harvest host, right?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but I think I
This
know
is
what
the
you're talking about.
guy, when I walked out, he was outside. We were outside that brewery.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, that's true. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
not what I would think of.
was it
Yeah,
a harvest host?
yeah, it was a harvest host
Yeah.
at a brewery.
Yeah, we were staying across the street from a brewery, which was part of a harvest host, and it was just one overnight stay. And so the next morning I get up, and you know, we're kind of packing up to leave, and there was a dumpster out there, so I was taking the trash out. As soon as I walked out, there was this man in like this long, or no, he had a like a leather jacket on, and he started talking to me, and Kyle came to the door. He goes, "Who are you talking to?" And I was like, you know, motioning him to come out because this guy didn't have all his marbles. He was talking very strangely about the cameras are watching, and
Yeah, there were some mental health issues going on with him, and I think he was probably a homeless guy. We were in kind of a more urban area up in Washington State, and we were, you know, camped in this parking lot for a night just as a drive through, and he was carrying this big stick around, you know, and for Michelle, you know, this is the kind of stuff I dealt with all the time in mental health and in the prison system, so I was much more comfortable just kind of managing it. So I went out and talked with him, and you know, and it was clear that, you know, he had some mental health issues going on, and I did my best to kind of de-escalate. I mean, he wasn't threatening in any way. He was just wanting to engage us in conversation, and so we did our best to kind of end that conversation as quickly as we could. And you know, there was you know, paranoia and stuff like that. So, you know, it was fine. I mean, it was more startling to Michelle, just for the fact that she walked out and there was a
and
guy
there he
standing,
was.
because this, you know, I mean, we were just in this empty parking lot. It wasn't like we were expecting anybody to be outside when she went out early in the morning, but
Yeah. So once he started walking away, we kind of sped things up to leave so he wouldn't come back.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so, you know, we haven't really had any problems per se, like as
Yeah.
far as safety and stuff is concerned. You know, we've had more run-ins with animals than anything, and not in the, you know, there's been several times we've been camped in an area where there's just cows walking up to our camper all the time because we're out in a pasture that they're, you know, permitted to feed in. And so, you know, they're rubbing up against the camper, or they're, you know, knocking over stuff because they're clumsy. And, you know, to my surprise, they eat cactuses, thorns and all. So they're like chewing down on these, prickly pear cactuses here in Arizona. So it's really, it's more that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've all often or always felt safe.
Yeah.
You know, even boondocking out here in a place where we might be the only people for miles around. You know, people aren't looking to cause trouble, and they're not going to go out and drive, you know, 20 miles down a dirt road to hope that somebody's out there if they're looking for trouble, you know. And the
Okay.
times that, you know, you hear about that on the news or whatever, it's often near a large metropolitan area. And so a lot of weekend people are going out there and partying and stuff, but we avoid those places. So we haven't
Okay.
really had any issues like that.
Yeah, all part of that lifestyle that you're living now, which is so like you talk about you know, scary people coming up to you. And I think, well, yeah, when I'm in India at certain gas stations,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
you'll get a few
absolutely.
scary people come up to you.
Yeah. It's the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened. It's much rarer in this lifestyle than what we were experiencing when I worked downtown.
Hmm. All right. Well, last question before we wrap it up. It
Sure.
says, in general, you both have been to some magnificent places on Earth. If you could live in only one of the places that you've visited, which one would it be?
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Um, well, I'm gonna say the name of the location in two formats. Everybody outside of the locals refer to it as Prescott, Arizona, but apparently you pronounce it Prescott. There's a long story behind that, but apparently the correct pronunciation is Prescott because the guy that they named the community after, the town after, refused to show up for the naming ceremony. So to spite him, they stopped referring to it in the way he spelled his or pronounced his name as Prescott. But Prescott, Arizona is gorgeous. The surrounding, you know, the surrounding nature is amazing. You get, you know, some snow, which I'm not a big fan of, but that community in that town is absolutely gorgeous and amazing. And I would, if and when it comes time to settle down, that would be on the list. But honestly, it's so expensive there that it's probably unrealistic for our lifestyle to be able to afford living in Prescott, Arizona for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
What about you?
For me,
Yeah. What
I
about
would
you,
say
Shell?
Yeah, for me, I would say Sedona, Arizona. Um, you know, maybe not in the midst of all the touristy area, but maybe somewhere on the outskirts. Um, because, you know, I do like snow, so you still get some snow. You get the warm weather. So, and it's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So
Wow.
that would be
Someplace
mine.
I've never been, that's on my bucket list. And I have to admit, I'm one of those that when you talk about out west and any place in Arizona, I just assume it's desert and
Oh
flat
no,
and
yeah.
cactus and but I've heard it's beautiful. I've just never been. I can't wait to see.
Yeah, the whole northern part of Arizona is nothing like what most people think of when they think of like Arizona and Phoenix and stuff like that. The northern half of Arizona looks more like Colorado.
Hmm.
You know, with the pine trees and valleys and mountains
The
and
changes in what
yeah,
the
and the change, yeah, and
seasons.
the seasons and stuff like that. So it's gorgeous.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, I will definitely have to take a trip. Maybe I'll come out and see you guys and we can take one of
All
those
right.
low impact hikes.
All right, that's fair. We can do that.
Fabulous. Well, as we wrap up, I do want to encourage anyone who wants to learn more about the Wandering Shores to be sure to check out their YouTube channel. But also, they have a live stream coming up, a special that
Yep.
they're doing on April 6th at 6
Yep.
o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You'll just go to their YouTube channel, The Wandering Shores, and be sure to subscribe and like and hit the
That's right.
bell.
Oh, you're very good at that.
For
Yes.
Yes.
updates. And then also, if you want to support them, they do have some merchandise for sale. And what are some other things that we can do to help support you guys while you're on the road?
Well, thanks. That's great. Well, we also have bought the domain name, thewanderingshores.com, and on there we have links to some of our merchandise. We also have links to our Amazon store. So we're Amazon influencers or slash affiliates. So anytime somebody's shopping on Amazon, if they can use that as their starting page, then we get a little bit of a kickback, and it doesn't cost the end purchaser anything. So Amazon just gives us a little, nickel and dime sometimes. Thank you for people accessing Amazon through our storefront. So that website is on thewanderingshores.com as well. And I think that's, and obviously just watching and enjoying our videos. We really enjoy putting these out. We've got another one coming out on Sunday. We're doing 2 videos a week, and we have been for about 2 videos a week now for about 6 months. So we just changed. We're going to start doing them on Sundays and Thursdays, starting this week instead of Tuesdays and Fridays. But yeah, so Sundays and Thursdays are the days for new released videos. And we got one coming out about some of the recent challenges that we've had with stuff breaking in the RV.
Okay. All right. And then for that April 6th live stream
Yes.
that you have coming up, I am going to offer my students another extra credit opportunity. If
Oh,
they
thank you.
participate and watch and ask a question, I will give them 10 extra credit points. So,
Oh,
well,
perfect. Thanks. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Great.
Yeah. So yeah, April 6th, we'll be going live at 6 p.m. Eastern, and
No. Oh, yeah, 6 p.m.
yeah, 6
Eastern,
p.m.
that's
Eastern.
right.
It'll be 3 o'clock our time. And we'll probably be sitting outside. And at that time, we'll be at a different location than we're currently at. We'll be in still Southern Arizona,
Yeah.
just a different wildlife management area. So we're excited.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you guys again. And if you don't mind maybe sharing some of the links that you mentioned in this episode, you talked about like how you pick your trails and the
Mhm.
weather link. You mentioned quite a few that would be really helpful for anyone, I think, who was looking to maybe give this a try. So if you're okay with sharing those, I'll be happy to post them to the class.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll send them to you. That'd be great.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you guys, and I'll let you know
Thanks.
if there's any follow-up questions, and we appreciate your time, and please stay safe out there.